All right. This is where we left off last week. I'll give you my translation, verse 37. But he that stands steadfast in his heart, not having a necessity, and I interpret that necessity being he had promised her to some young man that they could get married, or he maybe even promised her that he would let her get married if she wants to. But he has power concerning his own will. And so the power might be that he is not a slave. A slave wouldn't have the right to let his daughter be married, so he wouldn't have control over her. That's a sorry state of affairs that the slavery is. But, we found Christians were involved in it. They were slaves, many of them, some of them were. And so that would be sorry. But he has power concerning his own will, and he has determined this in his heart to keep his own virgin daughter as well. Again, I take it to be the father that's keeping his virgin daughter from getting married. Back then, if a girl didn't get married, she had some problems. It was hard for a woman to make a living. And so there was not very many occupations they could work in and make a living. She'd have to live with a brother or a nephew or someone would have to take care of her. In the United States, they used to call them spinsters because a woman that didn't get married, she would become the spinster. She would make the clothing for the rest of the family. So that's what she did, live with them. And kind of like be a nanny to help with kids and everything else. Does that make sense? That's how they worked it.
Yeah, except that I have that we start in chapter 8, verse 4.
Chapter 8, verse 4?
Yeah, that was last time.
Well, I'm sorry, yes. But 8, 4. I don't know why my computer just went to that file. All right, let's start here with this. We're talking about the things sacrificed to idols. We have a similar discussion in another chapter in 1 Corinthians and also in the 14th chapter of Romans. Right? I think we have James to read first last week. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think it was. Jerry, can you start first?
Yeah. I'll have to read off of that because my printer didn't print that top line for some reason very well. Well, wait a minute. Perites, Brosus, Un, Tone, Idolo, Thutone, Oidaman, Hoti, Odin, Edolon, and Cosmos, or Cosmo, Kai, Hoti, Udes, Theos, Heteros, A, May, Ace. Okay. I put, and I've got 3 different endings to this verse, but concerning then the eating of the things offered to idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is none other except God only. That's the way I ended it, which couldn't really figure out how I wanted to end it.
None other is Udes, and that's not one, not even one. Okay. It's pretty emphatic.
Yeah. I don't like the word except, but that seemed to be there no matter what I did, except God only.
Only one God, and that would be another heteros, another of a different nature, if there's not one, okay? And haste is one, okay? All right? Concerning, therefore, or relating to the eating of meats. And so we have here.
I didn't put the meats, I put eating of the things offered to idols.
And it's translated things sacrificed to idols. The eating is roseos, and that's the act of eating virtually anything. anything sacrificed to idols.
Yeah, I think it includes drink too, because it was bread and when it was food and drinking, eating and drinking.
Now, here, this is from oida. This is the perfect tense. Now, when it's oida is the perfect tense. And so,
You already knew this?
yeah, first person plural of oida. Oida is perfect. It's the perfect form of ido, idane. Okay? And from this word here, that's an infinitive form of it. It's a form of oral, but remember, it's a verb that it has different forms. It picked up different dialects and got the words from different dialects in different tenses. So it doesn't have the same form throughout all the tenses, right? Probably English go and gone come from different dialects. When and go and gone come from, probably go and gone went from the same dialect, but went probably come from some other language. In English, I'm just using that as an illustration. I don't know that for certain. Eating the things, and this is just an article, genitive plural article, the things being sacrificed. This is a genitive plural, so the things sacrificed to idols, right? We know, and this is a perception. It's like I see in the eye of my mind. Some people say, remember when I taught in college, I'd have a student say, "Oh, I see now." And what that mean? He understands it. I understand this. And so we know we have this perception with the eye of the mind is the idea with it. So in the eye of the mind, we see it in our mind. That no, and this is literally not one, uday, haste. So u is right here, and I'm highlighting it. And I'll break it apart. It's u and day, but not one, but not. Uday is but not. And that's pretty emphatic. It's not mayday, it's uday. U is a very definite negation, not in haste is one, but not one idol is anything in the world. Not one single idol is anything in the world. Does that make sense? He's very emphatic about it. Idols are easily destroyed by man because they're just physical things. Isaiah talks about it in Isaiah 37, 18 and 19. And that there is no other what?
No other except God only.
Okay. There's no other form of deity. This is not talking about the one God in the sense of we think of God the Father. This is Theos indicating the nature of God. There's only one God nature. And I think that's what it's saying here. There's only one set of beings that have this nature. All these other false gods don't have this nature. There's no different God nature other than the true God, right? These other ones are not God, right? But there's only one nature, one God nature. Right? There's only one God who is of a different nature than idols. So he's of a different nature, heteros, than idols. All other idols are just false gods. All right. Now, we have Allah here too.
I forgot to put of this nature in there. And I've got it translated that way, but I didn't put it in my verse. Huh.
Right? If not one. A may is if not one. All right. Let's go back up here in room. He notes, although there are several contrastive and adversative particles, Allah adds a unique constraint of correcting some aspect of what precedes. In terms of distinguishing Allah and Ame is what we have here. The key to the relation is follows of what precedes. In the case of Ame, the accepted element that replaces what precedes was a potential member of the negated set. In the case of Allah, the correcting member is not a member of the original set. So there's but one God. And you might potentially put these idols in that set, but they're not. See, that's what he's saying. They're not, they're in a different set. Heteros, they're different. Okay.
I didn't like the phrase that there is none other God but one, because then somebody's going to interpret that, well, okay, what about that one? You know, which doesn't make sense, but I mean, that's that'll come to their mind. That's why I was trying to word it around, none other except God only.
So I translated concerning therefore the eating of things sacrificed to idols. We know that an idol is nothing in the world, not one thing, and that there is none other God but one. There's but one God nature, okay? It's one true nature of deity.
Say, there is no other, wait a minute. There's only one God and no other. Could you rephrase it like that?
You probably could. Let's try verse 5 now. James, did you add anything there to it? Anything to add?
No, sir.
Hey, Chris, anything you want to add there?
No, it was very good.
I think Jerry read first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Chris, could you read for us?
Sure. Kai Gar, Eper, Asen, Lego, Minoi, Theoi, Ete, En, Urano, Ete, Epi, Tes, Ges, Hosper, Isen, Theoi, Poloi, Kai, Korioi, Poloi. I have, or even if indeed there are these called gods in heaven or upon the earth, as there are many gods and many lords.
So there are many that are called gods, that are being called gods. Okay. And that's a participle. There are many that are being called gods, whether upon the earth or upon, whether in heaven or upon the earth, and to be gods, many and many lords. Right. And of course, the use of the word gods there is of these different nature. They're gods of a different nature. They're not of the nature of the true God. They're heteros. Any comments there? Hyper, right on the screen here, is provided that, let me see what happened. Okay, there we are. Hyper. And this is if only, say, provided that there be that are called gods. There are those that are called gods. And of course, they're called that, but that doesn't make it. I've heard this old saying, and a lot of things have been attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but I'll give this one that I heard. He supposedly asked someone in an audience, he says, if you call a cow's tail a leg, how many legs does she have? And a bunch of people answered 5, and he said, no, that's not right. You call it a leg, it doesn't make it a leg. Right? So they may be called gods, but they're not the true God. They're not of the true God nature. They don't have that true nature. Whether in heaven, right? Some of the Greek gods supposedly dwelt in heaven. They claimed the stars and the planets were gods. So they've made claims regarding that. So the word heaven is used for at least three places. There's heaven where the birds fly, and it's used in the Old Testament that way. There's heaven where the sun, moon, and stars are. That's the second heaven. And then in 2 Corinthians 12, there's a third heaven, and that's paradise. And if that's paradise, that would be Hades, and that will be ended, and that's not where God is. So I would argue that there's at least four heavens, although the Bible only calls paradise the third heaven. So I'd argue that there are at least four heavens. And I don't have any evidence of any more than four. So I argue that there's four heavens, right? The fourth heaven being where God dwells. Any comments? But they had the idea that the Greek gods dwelt up in heaven, and that probably would be the second heaven where the stars and sun and moon are, because they thought of the Mars as one of their gods. Okay, Jupiter was supposedly the greatest of the gods.
Because he was further higher.
Yeah, he's the big planet, and okay. I think really, if you go back and study it, there was a friend of mine. He's dead now, but he researched it in Cambridge University, and I went over there and lectured over there and stayed in his home for a couple of weeks, but traveled around. But and he's a member of the church and everything. But he thought, and he did the research. He was convinced that these gods that they worshipped had been the old patriarchs like Shem and Ham and Japheth and their sons, who lived to be 400 or 500 years old, and the people thought they were like a god, and they were outliving their great-great-grandchildren, these men were. And he thought that these people thought of them like godlike, because
I guess in their eyes they would be eternal, because
Yeah.
they kept living and yet they were dying.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought of that.
And he had the evidence. He wrote a book on it. And he claimed that he was convinced that that's where they got these ideas. And a lot of their gods were supposedly men who had done great things, you know. So that's the idea. And wherever they got them, they're false, you know, we know that. But his idea was that's where they came up with them, probably. And of course, he wasn't dogmatic about it. He was just convinced that that's very likely to be where they got these ideas. Okay. And the Old Testament talks about worshiping demons. And of course, when we study a demon, that's the spirit of someone who's lived. And we have to dig into that more fully. And so in the book of 1 Corinthians, we're going to see they worship demons as well. And that will go into what we're talking about. We'll get into that later. I believe it's in the 10th chapter, I think. My memory's right. James, any comments there?
No, sir. Sounded reasonable.
All right. Again, they're false gods, of course. If you make a man a god, it's no better than making a piece of stone a god. All right. All right. As there are gods many. In Acts 17, they spoke of when Paul preached of the resurrection of Jesus, they said, you seem to be a setter forth of strange gods. And that's how it's translated in King James American Standard. But it's daimonion, it's demons. And again, they worship demons. And again, this goes back to what we're talking about. They worship someone who had done some great things. And if a guy lived to be 400 or 500 years old, they might think of him like a god. Okay. All right. I translated verse 5, for even if perhaps there are things being said to the gods, whether in heaven or by the gods or relating to the gods, or upon the earth, even as there are many gods and many lords. I don't know being said to the gods. Might need to revise that. I don't like that rendering. Okay.
It could even be as if, or is that not a?
Hyper, as if, could be.
Because if it was, then they would be called gods, whether in heaven or earth, or upon the earth, as if there are gods many and lords many,
Oh,
which makes more sense.
I didn't have to be gods. To be gods is what I have.
Yeah,
Being said to be gods. That's okay. I read that as to the gods, and I thought that's wrong. And I was reading it as be as thee. And I don't know. It's not thee in my text here. It's to be gods. They're being said to be gods. And I don't have a problem with that translation. I think that's pretty good there.
that's why I thought as if instead of even as, because they said even things said to be gods, whether on earth, even as, or as if there are, as if there be many gods and many lords. And that's why I thought they as if made it clear that they said it, but as if there really were, but there aren't.
And you're putting as if right here
Yeah,
where my mouse is. Quite possible. Post per. Usually I epsilon iota goes with if. Okay. So
also,
per
yeah,
is
might not be able
as-
to do that.
as if.
That's why it's in parentheses here, so I don't know
Okay.
in my notes.
Many lords, many gods. Okay. All right. We're going to go on to the next verse. Now we're back to James, or we're to James, not back to him. James, can you take verse 6 for us, please? James, can you take 6? Are you still there?
Yes, sir. Sorry, I had it on mute. Olemin es theos ho pater exuta panta, kai hemes es auton, kai es kurios Jesus Christos, diuta panta, kai hemes diautu. And I translated that as, but to us there is one God, the Father, from whom are all, and we unto him, and one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom are all, and we through him.
Okay. And there are many lords among the people there. Now, the Romans had a problem. They worshiped some men as gods as well. In fact, the emperor was worshipped. And so, and the Japanese during my lifetime worshiped the emperor. I was born in 1943 and they were still worshiping the emperor during World War II. I don't know if probably some continued to worship him even after the war. I'm not sure. But so they were worshiping a man. And so that may be where the lords come in, back in verse 5. James, give us your comments on it, if you will.
I see it as an emphasis again about the fact that the idols are worthless, that there is a God that does exist, and he's the one that brought us into existence, sustains us, and the one deserving of worship.
Okay. See, all things are of him, see. And now that all things has to be qualified. It's things, it's not, doesn't include God. He didn't create himself. The deity, theos here, is self-existent, always existed. Well, it's totally irrational to say that something comes from nothing, okay? And that the universe created itself, and that's really ridiculous. So if something can't create itself, that's just absurd, really. And yet we're even taught that by some people. Something brought it into effect for someone, and that someone had to be greater than the universe to bring it into effect, to bring it into existence. So whatever that is that brought the universe into existence has to be greater than the universe. And that, of course, we know the scriptures teach that's the God of the Bible. Okay? Any comments or questions there? But to us, now I want you to notice he has Allah here. Now we've already seen this in the prior quote, in the prior verse. This is Allah. You see that's just, they dropped the off because the A of the next one. Can't put two vowels together. So that's that hyphenation. They dropped it off. That's like an apostrophe. It's Allah. Allah is what we have here. It's going to put it in a different class. I want to go back and show you that because this is important. See, now here's a different category of gods. All right.
The screen on my end does not seem to have changed, by the way. It's still on verse 5.
And did it move then?
No, sir. But that's okay. I can still follow. I just wanted you to be aware.
Okay. I think Allah was earlier up here. All right. See if I can find it. Amen. Here's Amen. Here's where it is. It's on page 501 in these notes. Can you see it now?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So right here, Allah has a different category or class. Allah, the correcting members don't remember the original, said it's a new element, something new. So it really comes from Allah's originally. It's something new. God's, but right here, the truth is different. Are we back at verse 6 for you there, James, now? We're still on it?
No, sir, it's not changed for some reason. I'm not sure why, but that again, that's fine. I can follow along.
All right.
As you speak.
All right. So yet to us, there is one God, and yet is Allah. This is a different category now. Now I'm talking about something different here. All right. There's one God. And the word God is not a name. Keep this in mind. Theos is not the name of God. It's the name of a set of characteristics that a being has that's called God. So there's only one set of characteristics that's the true God. And there are three beings who possess those characteristics. Two of them are named here. O Pater, the Father, of whom are all things. So God the Father, and we unto him, okay, with a view to him. And then we have, and one Lord. Remember they said there are many lords, and this probably would appeal to the lords they had in this life. And it's Christ, through whom are all things. Now, Jesus was involved in the creation too. So this tells me that if everything was created through him, Dia, and that's intermediate agent, I find that the Father, Son, and the Spirit were all three involved in the creation. Genesis 1, the Spirit of God was brooding or moving upon the face of the waters. So all three beings were involved in the creation. They're just doing different things. And I would say they're divvying out the chores or the jobs. Each one's doing something different. That's the way I view it. And so they're all doing their part. And so all three of them, and now we have a different category because of Allah. Yeah, and this is the true God, because all things are made through him. Now, did it change now, James?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll go out. I'm going to go out and refresh.
Okay. Steve